Welcome to Mind Shift Power Podcast, a show for teenagers and the adults who work with them, where we have raw and honest conversations. I'm your host, Fatima Bey, the Mind Shifter. And welcome, everyone. This episode is called Desperate for a Man. You're going to find out as you listen. So today I have with us an anonymous guest. We're going to call her Miss Lulu, and she is from somewhere in the U.S., and she is a sexual assault investigator. But this is about more than just her position as that. And we're going to talk about that. So, Miss Lulu, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. As you know, I like to dive right into the topic. So, tell us what you do, and then tell us, why are we calling this episode Desperate for a Man?
Definitely. So, as you said, I'm a sexual assault investigator. And what that means is I am the first point of contact for these women when they are calling into law enforcement, into medical, into wherever they are going. I'm the one that gets all those gruesome details. I'm the one that they tell their entire story to. I'm the one that plays 500 questions with them in order to find out what happened, why it happened, how it happened, also how we can help them and how we can move forward with them. But of course, we need those details in order to criminally prosecute these individuals that are assaulting them. And we chose Desperate for a Man because when we were chatting, we talked about how the pattern that we see with these women is that they're continuously picking the wrong men. The same man, just in different bodies. Right. However, there is a pattern that they continuously fall into. These women choose not to be alone. They can't be alone. They have to have a man to validate themselves. They have to have a man to prove their worth. They have to have a man in their life because they cannot not have a man. And so they continuously pick the wrong men because they're not willing to do the work to better themselves, to pick a better man. They just want a man. Doesn't matter what man, just a man. And we see this pattern: domestic violence, sexual assault, all those different things coming back around and around and around.
Well, so I want a man, and I don't want to be alone. So what if he hits me here and there? It only affects me, right?
So a lot of women believe that. And what the research shows is it doesn't. It affects everyone, especially if you have children. The effects of domestic violence on children, observing it, are worse than receiving it yourself. And there's long-term studies that show this. It's not just the person that's getting hit. It is the entire family. It is their friends. It affects their job. It affects their day-to-day lives. It's not just the man and the woman, or man and man, woman and woman. Statistically, I always say the man against the woman because that's what the higher statistics show.
Right. Yep.
However, domestic violence is across the board. Yep. That one does not hit just one demographic. That is every single demographic. Yep.
Rich, poor, black, white, fat, skinny,
100%.
Foreigner, American, whatever.
Yeah,
slap a label on there. Yeah, you're 100% right. And this is something I'm extremely, extremely passionate about. And I just really think that more people need to really think about this topic. It is uncomfortable. It is very sensitive. And that's exactly why we're talking about it, because it needs to be talked about.
Yes, it needs to be talked about. It has been a taboo subject for so many decades, and something that, as children, we were told you don't discuss outside of the house. And it seems like those statistics are going through the roof now, but it's only because we are starting to finally realize that domestic violence hits 1 in 3 women. 1 in 3 women will experience
1 in 3.
it in their lifetime.
Wow.
Yes. And 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted. That is a horrendous statistic, and it's only getting worse.
And let me add something to this for the audience. The numbers that she's mentioning are only including the stuff that's reported.
Correct.
Keep that in mind. The numbers are actually higher because y'all know half that stuff ain't reported.
More
Look
than half.
around you, because
Yeah.
every single person listening to me knows that a lot of that stuff is not reported. So keep that in mind when you look at those numbers. And the numbers she's saying is completely accurate because I have seen them myself.
Yeah.
So dead
RAINnetwork.org
on.
or RAIN.org is what it is now. They can
Yeah,
pull up
yeah.
those
I
statistics
looked at some of those
themselves.
numbers on that organization as well. But someone who actually literally works in the system, you see things that other people don't. You
100%.
see the patterns up front. And that's why, as you're saying, research says, I'm like, screw the research. What do your eyeballs see? Damn it.
Yeah.
You know, what are our eyeballs see? What are
Mhm.
you experiencing? What have you seen around you? Let the research just be what confirms that. But you
Right.
already know,
Mm-hmm.
what you're seeing around you. So I really want to talk for a moment I want to talk about a couple different facets of that, but let's talk about the children.
Okay.
Let me back up for a second before we get to the children. Let's talk about teenagers. So if the domestic violence starts off at 16, what's the likelihood that they're going to have a healthy relationship at 22?
0% chance.
Why is that?
If the relationship is starting at 16 to be violent, what I've normally seen is that kid also grew up in violence. That's the only thing that 16-year-old girl knows. So that is her baseline normal. Now she's picking men who mimic what she sees and feels at home, which is this violence. And it only gets worse because that's all she knows. And with that, you're young and dumb at 16. You're young and dumb in your 20s. We don't outgrow or think better until your prefrontal cortex is fully developed, which is around 25-ish. At that time, though, you've already messed up your brain from the domestic violence, from the sexual assaults, from everything you've experienced. Especially if you had any kind of childhood trauma, your brain is already messed up. Like, you already need to reconnect those patterns in your brain to create something better. However, you're choosing the same cycle you grew up in, and you're just continuing that pattern so you won't know any better. By 22, this child will not have a healthy relationship unless she's able to get out of her system, get out of that pattern that she's in. And that takes an outside party coming in and basically taking over, teaching this kid what real love is, teaching this kid what healthy relationships are. Most of us don't know what a healthy relationship is in our teens, let alone our 20s. We don't figure that stuff out until our 30s and 40s. And by that time, she's already experienced 10 to 15 different domestic violence relationships.
Some do know what a healthy relationship is at 16, but only if they've seen it.
Correct.
And 90% of America has not seen it.
Correct.
Maybe 80%. I'm not sure the real number, but it's high up there. Most Americans have not seen what a healthy relationship actually looks like.
Right.
And which is sad, but true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an episode recently specifically about that relationship modeling and how that matters for us. So if a teenage girl is in a domestic violence situation, forget about domestic violence for a second. Let's say he's not putting his hands on her. He's just telling her how stupid and ugly she is and how fat she is and how she's not good enough for him all the time. That's a healthy relationship, right?
Not at all.
But that's another form of abuse. He doesn't have to
Right.
put his hands on you in
Correct.
order to make you feel like a piece of shit.
Exactly.
Or to treat you like one.
Right. Threats are powerful. People do not realize how much people can get away with things by a threat. And the threat of violence
you're right.
is just as effective as the real violence because we know what that pain feels like. We're afraid of that pain. And so that threat of violence will work.
There's threats, and there's also just the simple mental manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
Which has longer lasting effects than any bruise.
Oh, yeah.
And when we are desperate for a man, we take it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're like, I need that love.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is it's not love, is it?
No. It's manipulation and control.
Absolutely. Let's fast forward to go back to what I was talking about before with children. So this is something that you've seen in your line of work personally.
Mm-hmm.
Children of mothers who are desperate for a man and keep that loser in their house, bring them home, don't have conversations with the kids. That loser is abusive to the mother and or abusive to the child.
Right.
How often does that happen?
Oh, I see a minimum of 150 cases a day. Minimum.
What?
Where that's the reported cases.
You're right. That's a key factor you just said, Ms. Lulu. Reported.
Right.
And I want to go back to what I said
150
earlier.
children a day are seeing and or experiencing this where I am.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. But I know that you're telling the truth, but it's still just crazy. That shouldn't be.
Correct.
So what should these mothers with these men that are not good to them and they have children, what should they do?
We always say leave. That is easier said than done.
It is.
We all understand that. We have all been in a situation where you just can't leave yet. The problem is, if you have children, you need to decide who's more important, that man or your children.
Bingo.
Okay. So everybody always asks, what's the next step for a woman in this situation? Or what do I need to do? And we always say, leave him. Leave your abuser. However, that is easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a child with this man. You may be financially dependent on this man. He may have moved you somewhere where you have no resources. But at the end of the day, you need to pick what's more important, this man or your children.
That is key. You said a very big, can you say that again?
Yeah. What's more important, the man or your children?
And if you're wondering if we're talking about you, that choice right there is an answer. Have you chosen the abusive man over your children?
Exactly.
If the answer is yes, you've made a selfish decision. It's going to be 100%. Really honest. But if they have made that selfish decision, is it too late for them to change?
Never.
Agreed.
You can always change. You have to want to change. You have to be willing to make the changes. You have to go through the motions and get those resources and support and everything else you need in order to make that change. But it's never too late. It's not too late until you're in a body bag.
There you go. And Ms. Lulu just said it. It's not too late to make those changes. If that's you and you recognize that we're talking about you, we're specifically talking about you, it is not too late to make some changes. Because I can tell you, I was debating on whether or not to share this, but I think it's extremely relevant, so I will. I too was a child of a mother that was domestically abused for many years. She finally got us out of there, but we had to leave everything behind and escape him. Yeah. And I'm grateful that she did. It completely changed our lives. But I was traumatized over that abuse for many, many, many years. I could not talk about it without welling up with all kinds of emotions. I had built up anger. There were so many things that I had no idea were affecting me at that time. So I know firsthand what you were talking about. I know firsthand what it's like to have those images and sounds come back to your head randomly. The sounds of her head banging on the wall, the screaming, the trauma that comes from that. If you are in an abusive situation, I want you to know that is happening to your child right now. And I'm not saying it to make you feel guilty, but if you feel guilty, good if it makes you move. I have been in this situation, so I have seen it personally. Ms. Lulu has seen it over and over and over again. And let me tell you, does it also traumatize you, Ms. Lulu, seeing this over and over again?
100%.
It's traumatizing It's not just traumatizing for you as the abused, but it's traumatizing for everybody around you that has to deal with it, including the police officer, the lawyer in the court who has to know the details of what your man did to your child.
Yeah.
How often is sexual molestation a part of that?
Oh, I mean, I see 100 cases a day. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse.
I believe you. I believe you. Now, I am not in the position that you're in, so I don't get to see everything that you get to see firsthand. But I will say I've seen the abuse firsthand. I've experienced the nightmares and the trauma that come from it. But I've also been on the receiving end, like you, of people confessing for the first time the molestations, the rapes, or whatever that have happened to them, their trauma.
Right.
And it's very, very difficult for me as a normal human being to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they don't
It's
know that
not
I'm
easy
feeling
to
that way
listen to.
because I listen to it and I let them cry and I do whatever I can for them and I'm there and I comfort them. But it's difficult. It's very difficult to listen to. And I'm saying that because for the audience out there, if you were listening and if you are that woman who is in the abusive situation, please, I'm begging you, for the sake of your children, if nothing else, get out.
Yeah.
Please, get out. Who is more important? Your desperate need for a man? Your desperate need for false love? Or the health, wealth, insanity of your child? I'm talking to you right now. I need you to think about that. And for those that aren't in that situation, just sit by and listen. I'm talking to that woman right now who needs to hear this. Now I'm going to turn back to you, Miss Lulu.
Okay.
What do you have to say to the women out there who are in the situations we're talking about?
Get that help. You leave. At the end of the day, your safety and your children's safety is the most important part. And you can't have safety and security and well-being if you're in this type of a relationship. Get the resources. You may feel like you are alone and that there is nobody there to help you. I guarantee you there are people in your community, in your city, township, wherever you are. There is shelters. There are advocates. There are people in every walks of life who are willing to be that person you need to help to get away. And you just need to reach out. They can't find you if they don't know who you are.
Right, exactly. You said it exactly right. There are people everywhere who care. I am not the only person who cares. I just have a microphone and a platform right now. But there are so many other people like me and like Miss Lulu who actually care. We care and we will do whatever we can for you. But we have to first see you. We have to first know that it's really happening. And if you are in not just domestic, not just the physical abuse, but the mental abuse, which, as I said earlier, is far longer lasting than the physical.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get out of that too.
Yeah.
Because the manipulation they're doing on you is affecting how you deal with your kids. You may not see it right now, but haven't you seen that, Miss Lulu?
Oh, I have.
Can you give us some examples of some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah. So in regards to, that mental aspect that we just talked about, I had a case recently where the child had seen that growing up. That's all the child knew was the threat of harm. And if you don't follow through with what the man was saying, that he will hurt you. And when the child lashed out or didn't do exactly what that man said, the child would be physically beaten. The mom would be physically beaten when she did not do everything that the man said, to the point where it turned into a sexual assault. The man came in the room and told the child, "You will do this." And the child was not able to fight back because the child did not know the child could fight back. All the child has seen is that if you don't do what I say, I will hurt you. I will hurt your mom. I will take away this. I will do this. And that verbal threat and psychological aspect of knowing you're going to get hurt was just as powerful as actually getting hurt, to the point where that turned into a sexual assault.
I had an episode a couple months ago, earlier this year, for those of you who are listening in the future. It's 2024 right now. And the episode is called "My Children Were Molested Right Under My Nose." And one of the key things that we talked about was the fact that the husband, and it was her husband at the time, was abusive to her. And then he became sexual abusive to all of the children. She literally had no clue. But we were able to point out the fact that there was a link, there was a progress from abusing her to abusing the children. I personally believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you are in a position where you literally, it's your job to do this. So I personally believe that when someone is abusive to the mother, when you in the situation where there's a man abusive to the woman, and I'm talking about the man and the woman because that's what I'm most familiar with. I do understand that it happens in other genders, in other situations, but I'm not as familiar with those, so I don't talk about what I don't know. But when a man is abusive to the woman, 8 times out of 10, he will soon follow to the children, whether it's sexual or physical.
100%. Yes.
Or mental.
Yeah. Oh, mental, they're already doing it. You just don't realize it yet.
They're manipulating you already.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you have children and you're in this situation, just know your children are next. That sounds harsh. That sounds mean, but damn it, it's true. So I don't care if it sounds harsh or mean. I want you to know the truth. What I care about is you getting out of it. Now, I want to switch back over and talk to the teens for a moment, because I think it's important. One of the reasons I had you come on is, this is a show for teens. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to get this message in the ears of teens as much as we can before it's too late, instead of waiting till they're in an abusive relationship to try to get them out.
Right.
If you are a teenager, what do you have to say to the teenagers right now?
Teens, you need to find your own worth. You do not need a man or a woman to fulfill you, to complete you. You need to find that on your own. That way, when you do come across people who are manipulative or abusive, you'll be able to recognize it before it starts happening to you, or the second it starts happening to you. But if you have not found your worth, you'll think that's normal. You'll find the instant validation super nice, even though that instant validation comes with them telling you you're a worthless piece of crap 2 seconds later. But don't worry, it's because you're really pretty. You'll accept things like that.
You said it perfectly right, because that's exactly what they do. Oh, but don't worry, you're really pretty. And then I'll clean it up with a little stupid little comment like that.
Exactly.
And it's what.
But if you have that worth in yourself, you'll recognize that abuse. Because right there, that's just manipulation. That's just psychological stuff. They haven't hit you. But at that time, we need to stop it before then. And if you have the worth, you'll recognize it.
No self-worth makes you an easy target for a lot of things. It makes you easy target for trafficking, 100%. For prostitution, for being abused physically, mentally, or sexually. You're just an easy target when you don't know who you are. And they want you to stay that way, which is why they'll try to separate you from people. But they want you to stay that way. So knowing your self-worth, young women, grown women, it's really important. When we know our self-worth, we don't allow things to happen to us. And if you're listening right now, you're starting to recognize that there's a tear forming in your face right now, because we're talking about you. And the physical abuse may not have started yet, but the mental abuse is there. Whatever your situation is, it is not too late for you to make a change. It is not too late for you to get some self-worth. You just have to reach out to the right people and say, look, I know I need help with this. I don't know what to do. There's so many of us that want to help you. There's so many of us that live to help you. It's my greatest joy to help people like that. Because I understand
go to the school resource guide, go to the school nurse, Talk to your teachers that you trust. Talk to friends that you trust. Friends' parents, as long as they are safe people and they're
Yes.
not grooming you.
Right.
Go to them.
I want to add something on top of that. Sometimes there's people who won't go to systems. So school systems and social work systems, any of those systems, a good portion of society who need to go to them won't, because they don't trust them. So if you're listening and that's you, there are groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
There are groups in social media. There are groups of people that will look for them, that will help you. And if you don't know where to go, I have a page on my website called Other Help. Go to the bottom. You can find groups near you. Go somewhere, because I promise you, if you seek us, you will find us. But if you don't seek us, we don't know you're there, you won't find us, and you'll sit in the same misery you're in.
Exactly.
I don't want to see anybody sitting through some of the stuff that Miss Lulu has to see on a daily basis. I hate that it exists. I really do. Right. I hate that her position is even necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love for her to not have a job.
because, Amen. That would be
because it's not necessary.
That's going to be my new goal. Work my way out of a job.
Yes, I would love for that to be. I would love for your job to not be necessary.
100%.
But as long as there are evil people in this world and messed up people who like to mess up other people, we're going to need you, because children are going to be involved. And my biggest message to you out there, if you're listening and we're talking about you, do something. It's time to make a change. And if you're a teenager and you know you're in a relationship that just started, it's starting to look like that, but you want to give it a chance. You really like that Johnny's been buying you flowers and buying you burgers and taking you to the movies and texting you at night, you up and all that stuff. That feels good in the moment. And it does. It feels real good. I get it. But it's not worth it. If you know that you see little hints of manipulation coming, move, get out, because he's going to leave you more damaged than when you came in. I can promise you that. So. Oh, Miss Lulu, I could go on and on and on all day about this topic because I think it's so extremely important, and I'm so glad that you took the time to do this episode with me. And even though we started off with a completely different conversation, we quickly dove into this once we started talking about your job, and it's like, okay. I really appreciate your honesty, and my hopes are that somebody out there was listening today and is going to make a change in their life. If it's even just one person, it's worth all this effort to make 100%. A difference.
We just need to change that one person's life.
Yes. One person is worth it. And anybody who doesn't like it, they can just go somewhere. I don't care. I'm interested in who I'm reaching, not who I'm not. So for those of you who are listening, I'm hoping that you take this message, and even if it's not you, but you know it's somebody around you, that you try to do something. Try to have a conversation. Just try. Because sometimes the effort might be the push they need. You'd be surprised what's going on in people's heads.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Lulu, do you have any final words?
Ladies, reach out. Get that support system. Get that help. Go to the website if you don't, and get those other resources on the bottom of the page. Just make that change. Make the effort to put yourself and or your children first. Men are replaceable. Your children are not.
Yes. Well said. I will also add that I will actually put a link to the Other Help page in the podcast description, so that you guys can, if you're that person and you need help, then go ahead and click on it and get the help that's near you. That's if you are in the US. I don't have a link for Canada, unfortunately, but I do have one for the US. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now for a mind-shifting moment. I want to leave you with this little thought today. No matter who you are, man or woman, old or young, listening. Are you desperate for a man or woman? I want you to examine your life and look at your current partner or recent one. Are you so desperate for a partner that you sacrifice your children for him or her? Are you so desperate for a partner that you compromise your integrity and do things you would not do? I want you to just think about it. When you are with someone or before you pick a mate, are you so desperate that you'll accept anything? Some of you listening, it's not an issue. I'm not talking to you. I want you to question, to what degree do you need that man or woman or a mate? I really want you to examine that. And if you know that there's a little bit of despair there, that there's some desperateness, I'll call it, then I really want you to take a look at why. And you might not be able to answer that by yourself. It's okay to get some help answering that. See a therapist, talk to someone who helps therapize you, whatever works for you. But I want you to think about that. What are you worth? Thank you for listening to Mindshift Power Podcast. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Mindshifter. If you have any comments, topic suggestions, or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit fatimabay.com/podcast. Remember, there's power in shifting your thinking. Tune in for next week.